Firsts with Michelle Aiden.
Did I have the time of my life? Well, I certainly never felt that way before. That's for sure. In the 80s and 90s, sugarcoating shit was the default setting of the decades. And I would just like people to remember, especially now in South Africa, when the default setting is moan, 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 the past was the worst, whether it was 1612 or 1989. The past was the worst. Violence was pure poetry back then, and sex sold everything. I guess it still does, but it's just packaged differently now. It identifies differently now. I actually think nothing's changed. We're even in a Cold War again. Nuclear terrification. Is that even a word? It is now. Fuck's sakes, man, Oppenheimer. And I'm not talking about the South African rich dude. Do you know how many people thought that movie was about a South African rich dude? I'm also not talking about the guy that just won the Oscar. The actual guy that built the actual bomb. And I can't decide if he just should have blown us all up or just, when they asked him, said, no thanks, I have other things to do, like design an electric car. Fuck's sakes. But let's let the anticipation linger there for just a minute as we do housekeeping. This episode is going to have some trigger warnings, but my ever so handsome, tall, and young producer is going to put things on the YouTubes, which will not trigger you, warn you, and inform you of where to find me. But for those that are listening, you're going to find me on Instagram at Michelle Aiden, Facebook at Miss Aiden, TikTok at Michelle Aiden, and YouTube, Michelle Aiden, FYI. Like riding a bicycle. Anything I cocked up, he'll fix in post. What was I talking about again? Oh, yes, kissing and telling. I kind of feel guilty. No, I don't. I'm lying. I'm totally fucking lying. I don't feel guilty at all. Okay, now, girls, in La La Land back in the day, you were shown how to be perfect, how you needed to act and kiss and fuck. And boys were shown how they were to look perfect and act like shitheads and how to be hyper masculine through some sort of osmosis, because we were just supposed to know how to do this through things like magazines and newspapers and watching grown-ups be shit. That's how we did it. In the real world, apart from TV, we were given a book. Do you remember the book? Mine was put down on my pillow. It was the book about sex and stuff. We were told to ask, but the implication was don't ask about anything. Don't ask about sex or grown-up stuff. Periods, penises, babies. The end. Later came AIDS. The end. Literally. It was a different time. Okay? My book did not contain how to change a tire, how to change a light bulb, or how to change my mind. I never had the privilege of reading a boy one, but I'm pretty sure it didn't talk much about feelings or crying. I'm pretty sure there were 18 chapters about masturbating and growing hair on your palms and going to hell, because that was bad. My book had no chapter on masturbating, because girls don't do that. Let me just roll my eyes right through the back of my head and give myself a fucking MRI. So, in the 80s and 90s, we had one God, and he wasn't in church. He was in the lounge. Mr. Television. Love at first sight, he told us. One kiss, and all resistance would crumble, we were told. You always had makeup on your face, and you slept in something called a negligee. It was sort of this see-through thing with like a bodysuit underneath. You were also wearing stockings and high heels to bed. The man was in some sort of pants and no shirt. This was standard practice. And when they kissed, fireworks. As the age restrictions went up, so we're talking from 16 up now, tits out, people, tits out. Now it's heads off. Age restrictions have changed. But in any case, age restrictions go up. We believed everyone had the best time during first kisses and the other intimate acts. Movie versions of lovemaking in beds and cars. Kissing was the initiation of a lifetime of passion and joy and happiness. And everyone knew exactly what they were doing. And it would be amazing. And everyone would get their turn. You hadn't realized at 8 that not everyone gets picked. And you might not be popular. But your mom says you're perfect. Mama sê jy's mooi. Kak man. Kathy Bates is going to kidnap you and cut off your fucking legs, and your life is going to be misery. I'm sorry, this is not from overexposure to horror movies in the 80s and 90s. Not at all. A kiss with tongue. It's kind of a virginity loss. It's a penetration of an extremely private place, your mouth hole. Think about it. We don't give it enough credence. I think the Americans call it first base, but it's a huge rite of passage and such a moment of coming of age. Do you remember how Julia Roberts in, what was that hooker movie called? Pretty Woman. She wouldn't even kiss Richard Gere because it was too intimate. Can you still say hooker? I think it's only sex worker. Ek is jammer, naai machine. Julia. The 90s and 80s soap operas made the kiss look transcendental. Anyone who's watched an episode of any soap, from Bold and Beautiful to Binnelandish, knows this. Heike has kissed more people than I think exist on Earth, and married as many. Anyway, moving on. One kiss and true love sprouts like a grade 4 bean experiment. Do you remember those? The grade 4 bean experiments? Like that, baby. It's just leaves. This tall. True love. Now, with the amount of soap operas Gen X was fed, is it a surprise we totally fucked up and keep getting divorced and married and divorced and married because we have these ridiculous expectations of negligees and naked torsos? You must be wondering if I ever got kissed with the mouth I have on me and the mind I have on me, but I did, and that's why we're here, and it's a story. Kiss and tell, julle soek details, nah. Like in my favorite movies and soaps, beautiful faces, glistening lips, just a hint of tongue. That was the dream. Tender moment of intimacy. Well, in real life, it will come and shit in your bed, wipe its ass on your curtains and swear at your mother. That's how it goes. Okay. It's 1995, and I just turned 16 a few weeks back. Yes, I'd never been kissed. It's winter in the Southern Hemisphere, and we find ourselves at this super, I wouldn't call it classy, but fancy house party. Do people still do house parties? I don't know. In the rich suburbs of Benoni, in the now called Gauteng, in the brand new South Africa. Nelson Mandela's president, and Kurt Cobain had just killed himself. We were all really angsty, and let me tell you, we smelled like Teen Spirit. And you know what Teen Spirit smells like? It smells like spaghetti bolognese with a strange mix of raw and cooked onion and just a tinge of lavender, whatever shit coaty perfume you'd been given for Christmas that year. That's what Teen Spirit smells like. 3, 2, 1, action. the girl whose party it was. Popular. Like Nada Surf popular. It's a song. Google it. It's excellent. She was insanely popular. And I cannot remember her name. It was like Kelly, Katie, Kira, Burnt Sienna, something like that. But the cool part of the story is that her parents had bought this mansion, right? And before they were going to renovate it, they were going to let her have this epic trash the house party for her 16th birthday. Have you ever? Anyone with any social standing was invited to this party, the kings and queens of Benoni. And every court needs a jester. I'm the funny girl. I made the cut. It's always better to have them laugh at you and then get everyone else laughing at everyone else. That's how you survive high school. What's going to be hell for you? I later found out that jesters were often murdered. That's a different podcast. Horrible histories. I was standing outside this dimly lit Benoni mansion, talking to one of those casual friends. You know, someone you know, but you don't really know, but you're talking to them anyway because your best friend's late. Always fucking late. And you just don't want to look like the twat that has no friends. That's where I find myself. So we must smoke. It's the 90s. We're all rebels without causes because we feel so insecure now in 1995 about futures that we were told were so certain. Later, we would eat a tube of toothpaste and spray mum for men or mum for women in our mouths and think our parents would believe this bullshit story when we climbed in the car and went, everyone else was smoking, mommy. That's why I smelled like smoke. Well, they lied to us for like 16 years and we believed that bullshit. So those white little lies, I feel fucking nothing about. And I'm digressing here because that's a whole different podcast. Slachs. Back to tongues and mouths. Whose mouth? Well, mine, apparently. I drag on my courtly gold band 120. They don't make them anymore. So cool. So cool. I feel like Sean Young from Blade Runner smoking my courtly gold band 120. And suddenly I'm spun around really roughly and there's hands on my shoulders. And I look into the face of a super exquisitely popular grade 12 boy. And I shit myself and I start panicking because what have I done? I haven't said anything. I didn't make any crappy jokes and I don't need this crap right now. I'm just waiting for my friend. And he looks at me in a strange way. He looks at me like a KFC drumstick. You know, when you're really hungry and you've ordered a Streetwise 2 and you can't wait to get to it. He's looking at me like that, which I don't really understand. And he smells like alcohol. And all the cigarettes in the whole of the East Rand, that includes Nigel and Alberton. And just a little bit of puke. That should have been the cue. Huh? He steps in, shoves his hand behind my neck like this into my hair. And he just shoves his face into mine, mouth to mouth. And he stares at me because his eyes are open. And his tongue is just pushing against my lips. And his other hand grabs my back hard enough for my mouth to open. So he's getting his way. His eyes close, but mine don't. This didn't happen in Dirty Dancing. I don't know what to do. The irony of the Cranberry zombie playing is not lost on me because I'm just sort of standing there like an extra from The Walking Dead. I was a zombie with this grinding tongue in my face, this thing just kind of happening. And I just stood there. Like I'm just sitting here now with the pips falling around me, like reliving this memory. I think I put one hand on my face because I'd seen that on TV and that's what you do, right? You do what you think you're supposed to do. He's popular. I flick the cigarette away and I put my other hand in his neck and he grabs me even harder. And I feel like I'm being choked and his tongue kind of makes me want to gag. And this goes on for what feels like an eternity. And again, I do what Mr. Television showed. And I add my tongue and I move my head from side to side. And this really seems to make him happy because now he grabs my left breast and he squeezes it really, really hard that I make an audible sound. And this makes him really happy. And it hurts a lot. Not that he's happy, that he's squeezing my breast so hard. And this goes on for more minutes that feel like hours. And then I'm just shoved away. And he strides, stumbles off into the distance. And my face is burning from the stubble. And my mouth tastes like beer and smoke and vomit. I think it's pizza. My breast is throbbing. And I thought, I'm glad that's over, as my heart is beating in my eyes. The girl I was talking to earlier, who's been standing there the entire time, goes, "Oh my God, you just made out with like," I'm not going to dox him. Let's just call him John. And I paused for a moment and I thought, yeah, I did. Does that mean I'm popular now? Am I going to get a better spot at the first break tuck shop queue? Am I going to be shoved around less in the stairwells? One can dream. He never acknowledged or spoke to me ever again. He saw something he wanted and he took it. I was available and vulnerable. And that's the definition of a victim. And that makes me furious because if there's something I despise being, it's a victim. But that's a whole different podcast. In fact, that's just an entire different movie. Also, I didn't get a better spot at the tuck shop queue. That really pissed me off. I remember getting undressed at home with those perfect finger marks on my left breast and kind of thinking they were like badges of honor and being strangely excited and proud of them. And they were there for weeks and it took a lot of energy to hide them from my mom. But at least I was 16 and finally kissed. These things are so often linked to guilt and shame. That book I got didn't say fuck all about any of this stuff. And you didn't ask your mom. You just didn't because you'd get murdered. Boomer parents don't care about childhood, puberty, or problems. They just want letters for awards evenings. Does anything I say make any sense? And midlife isn't working out any easier. It's just as shit as being a teenager, except way more expensive. And I'm still under pressure. I miss Freddie Mercury and David Bowie. The next kiss a few months later was markedly better, but the memory of the first did taint future experiences. The whole kissing journey got better, it got easier and more fun and illicit and intense. The sidebar. Several years later, I heard John, is that what we called him? Got arrested for rape. He apparently didn't get any better with the whole consent thing. And I think if I'd been in the house, I wouldn't have been so lucky. So I got lucky. So like with most things, you just fumble away in the dark, figuring it out. Like in upcoming episode 3, First Fuck with Michelle Aiden. We'll talk all about that as I get undressed for success. Unless those vacuum cleaners take over. I honest to God think no one watched Terminator.
Firsts with Michelle Aiden.